Hello and welcome back to Building on a Budget Models. I'm Thomas, and this is the third part of the Jaguar E-Type by Revell in 1/24th scale. Firstly, this goes back to when I was starting the build. The body is moulded in red, which is great if you want it to be red, but not so great if you want it to be green. There are a few mould lines, mainly around some of the fenders, the rear ones that is. I used some 600 grit sandpaper to sand these down, and then I had another opportunity to look around the body after priming it. The bonnet as well has some around the headlights. There are also some around the grille opening, however I didn't notice these at this point. Now, I don't really like the wing mirrors. I don't think they're particularly realistic. I looked at these bullet-shaped ones. I'm not sure they'll fit. If you don't like the wing mirrors, this is the point where you need to fill these gaps. Once I had primed it in Tamiya fine grey primer, I then noticed some more spots and sanded those too. I then painted this in TS43 British Racing Green. This was the same colour I used on my Lotus Super 7 build. Firstly did a mist coat, then 20 minutes a heavier coat, and 20 minutes after that then did a final wet coat. The body and bonnet were connected with some masking tape on the inside. I gave the car a light wet sand just to smooth out some of the paint before moving on to the decals. There aren't many decals, but the first one that needed to be done was this E-Type Jaguar nameplate which goes on the boot lid. Use a little bit of micro sol to help set this down as straight as possible. Then there's a small vent decal which goes at the rear of the bonnet. This is a very small area for it to go, but the fit is almost perfect. Just make sure that you get it to stick down on the edges really nicely. Now the next decal I wanted to add was that traditionally the E-Type in Britain didn't have a front number plate, so to speak. Instead it had one painted onto the bonnet. It comes with a variety of plates here. I used the British one, but it wouldn't have had the silver trim around the outside. So I cut this as carefully as I could to trim off the silver edge. I use nail scissors here because I find that they are usually very sharp and very accurate. I decided to go with the 1961 in the end to recognise the car's 60th anniversary. Look at examples of the real car to see where exactly this number plate was positioned. My guess is that real number plates weren't put on the front of the car, as that would ruin the lines of the front grille. I then coated all the exterior parts in gloss clear from Halfords. Now these chrome headlight parts here unfortunately had a bit of red showing on the inside, so I used some Molotow liquid chrome and filled in these gaps. I think it's a real shame that they moulded this from red plastic, because it means that whenever you cut them from the sprues you get a tiny dot of red which you then need to cover up. Now this is the interior part of the lights and also has part of the radiator. You need to do this part of the radiator, this mesh, in aluminium. The backs of the headlights need to be done in gloss black. And then I used a small dab of super glue around the edge. Fortunately there's also a little tab to help you get these lights in the correct position. I did a little bit of black around the edge of this to simulate rubber trim. And then I used some new Bob Smith Super Gold Plus glue, which is foam safe so therefore can be used on clear parts safely. Remember to adjust these headlight lenses as quickly as possible to try to get the pattern in a parallel position. Now this frame goes on the inside of the bonnet. There's a really nice kind of pattern for that to fit in. And these all secure together really nicely as well. Added some panel line here just to add a little bit of depth. Then some Tamiya extra thin to secure these kind of semicircular sort of shapes in here, which kind of fit into the nose of the bonnet. Not shown here, but the car body, after curing for 5 days, was polished using firstly wet sandpaper and then the UMP polishing system. Now these window trims here need to be silver, so I used some Tamiya curved masking tape to go around the edge, and then some Revell silver paint on top. If I was doing this again, I may have used Molotow chrome or maybe some foil to do this, because unfortunately they contrasted a little bit with the window trim, as I'll show you later. Still, I'm pretty happy with it. I then did the same for the other side, and the interior was painted in the same ochre as I'd done the seats. Now I then masked off these bars on the bonnet and added some silver, but I wasn't happy with how it looked. I thought I could do a better job, so I'd come back to this later. Now these headlights fit in really nicely. In fact, if you just push the headlights in, they stay in with no problem. But I decided to add a little bit of glue around the edge just to secure them in place. Unfortunately, this kind of lower bonnet here, the kind of bumper area, doesn't fit quite so well. So once gluing that, I then added a little bit of masking tape to hold it in place, as you can see here. The body was nearly ready to be mounted onto the chassis, so I decided to attach the wheels. These click on really easily, no glue was required, they still all rotate and can also be removed just as easily. I then decided to redo the chrome trims on the bonnet. Used some masking tape, pushed them down into both sides using a cotton bud. Cut a length of plumber's aluminium tape of a similar size and length, and stick it on, push it down with a cotton bud just as you did with the tape. Then use a new sharp blade, but remember to be careful, and press along the edge of the chrome strip. Now thankfully, because of the masking tape, you should then be able to simply peel it off without leaving any horrible sticky residue on the bonnet. Then used a cotton bud just to push this down again, and I'm really pleased with how this looks. Let me know in the comments if you've tried anything similar or you would try this tip yourself. Now before I mounted the body, there are a few details on the inside, including this, I think it's a dome light at the back. There is a raised part for it and then a decal to go on top. There's also some sun visors on the inside, which I left in beige, but did a little bit of silver at the edges to replicate the sort of hinges. The rear view mirror is from the chrome sprue and doesn't fit particularly well into the hole which has been left for it in the roof, so super glue is really useful here. Now then, when fixing the body here to the chassis, prise apart the kind of long parts that go on either side of the bonnet. The body is quite flexible, so you should be able to do this without too much problems, but I decided to leave off features like the windows until later. It slipped down over one side, so I then used some tweezers just to prise open the other side to get it over the bodywork. Then needed a slight adjustment to fit down at the back. These seams will be covered with the chrome trim, so I'm not too worried about them. There we are. Now the window trim also needed to be chrome. This time I decided to use some of the Molotow chrome, which I put into a little bottle cap and then added with a cocktail stick. If you make any mistakes with this, it can be removed with thinners on the end of cotton bud. What I did was I painted this on one day and then left it 24 hours to cure. Molotow chrome is very vulnerable to being blemished, and if you touch it whilst it's curing, it will dull very easily. I also did this with the side windows, and the window at the front I simply used some black Sharpie to simulate a rubber trim. There's a really nicely moulded front window trim for this to fit into. I used some Bob Smith Super Gold Plus again to fit it into that, and I also added a tax disc which I found in my spare decals box later on. There's two tabs at the bottom which this fits into. Needs a little bit of pressure for this. I decided for the rear window to do a little bit of a black rubber trim around the edge as well. And then, as is my kind of signature, I also added a little Building on a Budget window sticker to the inside. There are some small little kind of flaps in the corner of this to help you position the window. However, using a little bit of folded masking tape like this can make it really easy. Then just peeled it off, and I was pretty happy with how that was left. I did the same trick with the side windows, also using Bob Smith Super Gold Plus to fit it in nice and easily. Now for the front of the car, it fits onto a hinge just in front of the engine, which unfortunately I obscured with my hand. Be very careful with this hinge. And then when it pushes down, there is a small pin just in front of the centre of the bodywork, which should secure these parts together. I then used the UMP wax and then shine to give it a really nice look. And that's that. Next video will be the final one. Thanks for watching. Please do comment, like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.